Tonight, we're diving into the quiet and tragic lore of Foxy from Five Nights at Freddy's. Like the video, subscribe, let's begin. The beginning, Fredbear's Family Diner, and the birth of Fazbear Entertainment. In the early 1970s, two entrepreneurs named William Afton and Henry Emily came together to pursue their shared dream of creating family entertainment. Their partnership would birth an empire that would become known as Fazbear Entertainment, though neither could have foreseen the darkness that would eventually consume their creation. Henry Emily served as the engineering genius behind their venture, developing revolutionary spring-lock technology that would allow animatronic suits to function in two distinct modes. These suits could operate as autonomous entertainment robots, moving and performing on their own, or they could be worn by employees as costumes, with the animatronic components locked away using internal springs. This dual functionality represented a significant breakthrough in the entertainment industry of the time. William Afton, Henry's business partner, focused on the commercial aspects of their enterprise. He handled customer relations, business operations, and the expansion of their growing brand. Together, they opened Fredbear's Family Diner, a modest establishment that featured two main attractions: Fredbear, a golden bear who served as the primary mascot, and Spring Bonnie, a yellow rabbit character. The diner also featured a security puppet called the Marionette, which Henry created with a specific purpose in mind. The diner proved successful beyond their initial expectations. Families flocked to see the animatronic performers, children celebrated birthdays in the dining area, and the business grew steadily. This success prompted William and Henry to expand their operations significantly. The expansion, Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, and the introduction of Foxy. As Fredbear's Family Diner continued to thrive, Afton and Emily made the decision to expand their business into a full-fledged entertainment chain. They established Fazbear Entertainment as a corporate entity and opened their first Freddy Fazbear's Pizza location. This new restaurant would feature an entirely new cast of animatronic characters designed to appeal to a broader audience of children and families. The original Freddy Fazbear's Pizza opened its doors in 1983. The main stage featured three core performers: Freddy Fazbear himself, a brown bear with a top hat and microphone who served as the lead singer, Bonnie the rabbit, a purple bunny with a guitar, and Chica the chicken, a yellow chicken with a bib that read, "Let's Eat Who," performed with a cupcake companion. However, the restaurant's most unique attraction stood apart from the main stage. In a separate area of the building, decorated with purple curtains adorned with stars and sparkles, stood Pirate Cove. This was the domain of Foxy the Pirate, an animatronic fox character who performed solo shows for the entertainment of the pizzeria's young guests. Foxy was designed with distinctive characteristics that set him apart from his mechanical companions. His body featured bright reddish-orange fur, though much of his endoskeleton structure remained visible, giving him a more rugged appearance than the other animatronics. He stood tall, with yellow eyes and red eyebrows, with 3 strands of hair protruding from the top of his head. His most iconic features were the black eye patch that typically sat above his right eye rather than covering it, and the hook that replaced his right hand. Foxy wore brown linen pants that were tattered at the legs, completing his pirate aesthetic. His exposed endoskeleton was visible in several areas, particularly his legs below the upper thighs and his left hand, where the fur covering had worn away to reveal the metal framework beneath. His chest showed various tiers and openings where the internal machinery could be glimpsed. Unlike typical foxes, Foxy lacked a tail, and his feet ended in yellow claws, one of which appeared chipped, suggesting wear from use. The character's personality matched his appearance perfectly. Foxy spoke in pirate slang and affected a pirate accent, entertaining children with nautical-themed performances. He would sing sea shanties to himself, creating an immersive pirate experience for the young patrons who visited his cove. According to later revealed information, Foxy originally wore a more elaborate pirate costume when he first began performing. This outfit included a pirate hat and a blue frock coat with gold accents, and during this period, he was known as Captain Foxy. Pirate Cove itself became a beloved attraction within the pizzeria. The area featured a cylindrical purple curtain decorated with stars, behind which Foxy would prepare for his performances. A sign stood prominently in front of the cove, though its message would change over time. Star decorations hung from the ceiling, and the floor featured black and white checkered tiles. Two lights illuminated the space from the back wall, creating dramatic lighting for Foxy's appearances. The character operated differently from the other animatronics in the restaurant. While Freddy, Bonnie, and Chica performed together on the main stage, Foxy conducted solo shows. He would emerge from behind the curtains of Pirate Cove to entertain groups of children who gathered specifically to watch him perform. This separation from the main band gave Foxy a unique status within the restaurant's entertainment lineup. The tragedy, the missing children incident. The success and innocence of Freddy Fazbear's Pizza would not last. At some point between 1983 and 1985, a horrific event occurred that would forever change the fate of the restaurant, its animatronics, and the souls of innocent children. William Afton, the co-founder of Fazbear Entertainment, harbored dark secrets and twisted desires that his business partner, Henry Emily, never suspected. Afton had already claimed his first victim, Henry's own daughter, Charlotte, in an incident that occurred around this same time period. Charlotte's death occurred outside one of the establishments, and her soul would go on to possess the marionette puppet, though the full implications of this would not be understood until much later. The darkness in William Afton's heart drove him to commit an atrocity that would become known as the Missing Children Incident. The event occurred on June 26th at Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. 5 children visited the restaurant that day, likely for a birthday celebration or simply to enjoy the animatronic performances and pizza that made the establishment so popular with young families. The 5 children were named Gabriel, Jeremy, Susie, Fritz, and Cassidy. They ranged in age from approximately 5 to 12 years old, innocent victims who had come to the restaurant seeking nothing more than fun and entertainment. Among them was Fritz, a young boy who would become forever linked to Foxy the Pirate. William Afton executed his plan with calculated cruelty. He donned a costume resembling Spring Bonnie, the yellow rabbit character from the original Fredbear's Family Diner. The suit served a dual purpose. It allowed him to move freely throughout the restaurant without raising suspicion, as employees and animatronics in costume were a normal sight, and it helped him gain the trust of children who were accustomed to seeing friendly mascot characters. Using the Spring Bonnie disguise, Afton approached the 5 children individually or in small groups. He spoke to them kindly, perhaps offering them special prizes or promising to show them something exciting. One by one, he lured them away from the public areas of the restaurant and into a back room, a safe room that was hidden from normal access and known only to employees with specific knowledge of the building's layout. Once Afton had all 5 children isolated in the safe room, he murdered them. The exact method of their deaths has never been fully detailed, but the outcome was tragically certain. 5 young lives were snuffed out in an instant, their futures stolen by a man they had trusted because he wore the costume of a character they loved. To conceal his crimes, William Afton stuffed the bodies of the murdered children into the animatronic suits that entertained guests in the restaurant. Gabriel's body was hidden inside Freddy Fazbear. Jeremy was placed within Bonnie the Rabbit. Susie was stuffed into Chica the Chicken. Fritz found his final resting place inside Foxy the Pirate. Cassidy's body was concealed within an older spring-lock suit known as Golden Freddy. The next day, June 27th, video surveillance footage revealed suspicious activity. Police identified and arrested a suspect through this footage, charging him with the crimes. However, the bodies of the 5 children were never recovered by authorities. They remained hidden inside the animatronic suits, their presence unknown to investigators. The children were declared missing, their families left without answers, their fates a mystery to all but their killer. In the aftermath of the murders, strange phenomena began occurring at Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. The animatronics, particularly those containing the bodies of the murdered children, began to emit foul odors that customers noticed and complained about. Blood and mucus appeared around the eyes and mouths of the mechanical performers. Parents who brought their children to the restaurant reported that the animatronics looked like reanimated corpses, their appearance taking on a disturbing quality that had never been present before. But something more profound had occurred, something that transcended the physical horror of the crimes. The marionette, possessed by the spirit of Charlotte Emily, who had been William Afton's first victim, took action to help the newly murdered children. In an event that would later be depicted in visions and memories, the marionette sought to give the dead children a second chance, a form of continued existence that would allow them to seek justice for what had been done to them. The marionette gave gifts to the lifeless bodies of the children, performing some form of supernatural ritual that bound their souls to the animatronic suits that housed their remains. Gabriel's spirit became one with Freddy Fazbear. Jeremy's consciousness merged with Bonnie. Susie's soul inhabited Chica. Fritz's essence fused with Foxy the pirate. Cassidy's spirit possessed Golden Freddy. Fritz, the child who had been murdered and stuffed into Foxy, was no longer simply a victim hidden inside a machine. His soul, his consciousness, his very being became intertwined with the animatronic Pirate Fox. The cheerful entertainment robot that had once delighted children with pirate-themed performances was now home to a tortured spirit seeking vengeance against the man who had stolen his life. The possessed animatronics retained fragments of their programming and purpose, but these were now filtered through the consciousness of traumatized children who had been violently murdered. They existed in a state of confusion and rage, unable to fully comprehend their situation, but driven by an overwhelming need for retribution. They could not distinguish between their killer and other adults who worked at the restaurant. In their limited understanding, they perceived all grown-ups in security uniforms or working late at night as potential threats, as people who might be the one who had killed them. The aftermath and closure of the original location, the missing children incident, devastated Freddy Fazbear's Pizza's reputation. Parents were terrified to bring their children to a location where 5 kids had vanished without a trace. The foul smells emanating from the animatronics, combined with the visible blood and mucus, made the restaurant an unwelcoming place, despite management's attempts to clean and maintain the characters. The exact timeline of events following the murders remains somewhat unclear, but eventually, the original Freddy Fazbear's Pizza was forced to close its doors. The investigation had connected the disappearances to the restaurant, and even though the bodies were never found and the full truth never came to light, the damage to the establishment's reputation proved fatal to its business. However, Fazbear Entertainment made the decision to keep the animatronics rather than destroy them. Freddy, Bonnie, Chica, and Foxy were placed in storage, deemed too valuable as assets to simply discard. The company planned to eventually reopen and reuse these characters, unaware that they now housed the vengeful spirits of murdered children. For Foxy specifically, this period marked a transition in his status within the company. At some point, whether before or after the murders, Pirate Cove was closed down. The exact reasons for this closure remain shrouded in mystery and speculation. A sign reading, "Sorry, out of order," was placed in front of the purple curtains that had once opened to reveal Foxy's entertaining performances. Various theories have emerged regarding why Foxy was discontinued as an active performer while the other animatronics continued operating. Some have speculated that Foxy was involved in an incident that led to his deactivation. There are suggestions that he may have bitten someone, though evidence from later sources indicates he never bit any children. If such an incident occurred, it may have involved an adult, another animatronic, or even an animal, but concrete details remain elusive. Another possibility is that children found Foxy's appearance too frightening. His tattered appearance, exposed endoskeleton, sharp teeth, and overall rugged design may have scared young visitors rather than entertaining them. Customer complaints about his scary appearance could have led management to discontinue his shows and close Pirate Cove. It is also possible that Foxy's discontinuation was directly related to the missing children incident. Perhaps Fritz, the child who was murdered and placed inside Foxy, was killed specifically at Pirate Cove or in connection to Foxy's shows. The area might have been closed as part of the investigation or due to its association with one of the disappearances. Whatever the reason, Foxy stood dormant behind his purple curtains as the original Freddy Fazbear's Pizza closed down. his painted eyes staring into darkness, the spirit of Fritz trapped within his mechanical body, waiting in silence. The second location, a new restaurant and new versions. Fazbear Entertainment, despite the catastrophic failure of the original Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, refused to let their brand die. The company attempted to rehabilitate its image and create a fresh start by opening a new location. This new Freddy Fazbear's Pizza would feature updated technology, newer animatronic designs, and a renewed commitment to safety and entertainment. The new restaurant opened in early November 1987, several years after the closure of the original location. The company's approach to this second iteration involved creating an entirely new set of animatronic characters while attempting to refurbish and reuse the original animatronics, including Foxy. The original animatronics from the first restaurant, now including the possessed bodies of the murdered children, were brought to the new location. However, the company's plan to refurbish these characters with new technology ultimately failed. The old animatronics had fallen into severe disrepair during their time in storage. For Foxy specifically, this neglect resulted in his transformation into what would become known as Withered Foxy. Withered Foxy's appearance had deteriorated significantly from his original state as the entertaining pirate of Pirate Cove. His suit became even more tattered and damaged than it had been before. The fur on his left ear had come off completely, leaving the endoskeleton structure fully exposed. His muzzle appeared to have changed shape, and the teeth of his endoskeleton were now clearly visible, a feature shared by all the Withered animatronics. Despite these significant damage markers, Withered Foxy actually remained in relatively better condition compared to some of his companions. Withered Bonnie was missing his entire face, and Withered Chica had lost her jaw entirely. In comparison, Foxy's worst damage consisted of the large tears and rips in his suit. His basic structure remained intact, though his overall appearance had become significantly more horrifying than his original design. The company decided that the Withered animatronics, including Foxy, were too damaged and potentially too frightening to use as main attractions. Instead, they were placed in a parts and service room, relegated to serving as spare parts sources for the new generation of animatronics. These new characters, called the Toy Animatronics, featured sleeker designs, brighter colors, and more modern technology, including facial recognition systems tied to criminal databases. To replace Foxy specifically, Fazbear Entertainment created a new character initially known as Toy Foxy. This animatronic was placed in an area called Kids Cove and was designed with a more child-friendly appearance than the original Foxy. The character featured white and pink coloring with red accents, attempting to appeal to young children with a softer, more approachable design. However, Toy Foxy's tenure as a functioning attraction proved short-lived. The restaurant implemented an unusual policy regarding this animatronic, allowing children to take it apart and put it back together as an interactive attraction. This decision proved disastrous. Children repeatedly dismantled Toy Foxy throughout each day, and the staff eventually gave up on reassembling the animatronic properly. The character became permanently mangled, with its endoskeleton exposed, wires hanging loose, and its body twisted into a grotesque configuration. From that point forward, both staff and customers referred to the ruined animatronic as the Mangle. While Withered Foxy sat dormant in the parts and service room, the spirit of Fritz remained trapped within the damaged suit. The new restaurant brought new security guards, new children, and new potential targets for the possessed animatronic's misguided vengeance. During the nights when the new location operated, a security guard named Jeremy Fitzgerald worked the overnight shift. He discovered that the animatronics, both the new toy models and the old withered versions, became active after hours. They would roam the building, their movements driven by a combination of their original programming and the supernatural forces inhabiting them. Withered Foxy proved to be particularly aggressive during these night shifts. Unlike the toy animatronics, Withered Foxy could not be fooled by the Freddy Fazbear mask that Jeremy used to protect himself from most of the other characters. When Withered Foxy became active, he would leave the parts and service room and navigate through the building toward the security office. The withered pirate fox would eventually reach the hallway outside the office, where Jeremy could see him approaching. The only defense against Withered Foxy's attack was the flashlight. When Jeremy shone the flashlight beam directly at Withered Foxy while he stood in the hallway, the animatronic would retreat, returning to the parts and service room to reset his approach pattern. If Jeremy failed to use the flashlight, or if he was too slow to react, Withered Foxy would rush into the office and attack him, ending his shift in a lethal jump scare. The behavior of Withered Foxy during these nights revealed the confused state of Fritz's spirit within the machine. The animatronic moved with purpose toward the security office, driven to attack the guard, but could be repelled by something as simple as a flashlight beam. This suggested that the spirit inhabiting Foxy remained bound by certain rules or limitations, unable to simply manifest and attack at will, instead constrained by the physical capabilities and programming of the animatronic body it inhabited. Jeremy Fitzgerald survived his nights at the new Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, though the experience must have been traumatic. He encountered Withered Foxy multiple times, along with the other possessed animatronics, each night bringing new terror as the mechanical being stalked through the darkened restaurant. The new Freddy Fazbear's Pizza location operated for only a few weeks before another tragedy struck. On the 14th of November 1987, an incident occurred during the daytime hours that would become known as the Bite of 2087. An animatronic attacked a person, biting them with enough force to cause severe injury. The victim, believed to be Jeremy Fitzgerald during a day shift, survived the attack but lost their frontal lobe. While various animatronics have been suspected of causing the Bite of 87, evidence suggests that Mangle, the destroyed version of Toy Foxy, may have been responsible. However, some theories have also pointed to Withered Foxy as a potential culprit, given his aggressive nature and sharp teeth. Regardless of which specific animatronic caused the bite, the incident proved catastrophic for Fazbear Entertainment's reputation and led to the immediate closure of this second location. In the aftermath of this closure, the toy animatronics were scrapped entirely. The withered versions of the original animatronics, including Withered Foxy, were once again kept by the company. Fazbear Entertainment made the decision to refurbish these characters one more time, repairing them and preparing them for use in yet another attempt to revive the Freddy Fazbear's Pizza brand. Return to service, the refurbished Foxy. After the closure of the second Freddy Fazbear's Pizza location in 1987, the withered animatronics underwent another refurbishment process. Fazbear Entertainment invested in repairing the damaged characters, though the results would prove imperfect at best. For Foxy, this refurbishment resulted in a return to his classic appearance, though he would never again match the pristine condition he had enjoyed when first created. A new Freddy Fazbear's Pizza location opened, reusing the refurbished original animatronics. This restaurant brought back the familiar setup: Freddy, Bonnie, and Chica on the main stage, with Foxy once again residing in Pirate Cove. However, the years of use, the time spent in disrepair, and the repeated refurbishments had taken their toll on all the animatronics. Foxy's appearance at this new location showed clear signs of wear and damage. His fur remained crimson and tattered, with extensive areas where the underlying endoskeleton showed through completely. Both of his legs, except for his upper thighs, were entirely bare of any covering, displaying the metal framework that allowed him to move. His left hand had been worn down completely to the endoskeleton, leaving no trace of the fox paw that had once covered it. The hook still served as his right hand, and the eye patch remained his signature accessory, typically positioned above his right eye rather than covering it. His chest showed multiple tears and openings where his internal mechanisms could be seen. The brown linen pants he wore were shredded at the legs, hanging in tatters that contributed to his overall disheveled appearance. His teeth, sharper than those of any other animatronic in the restaurant, were fully visible, resembling the canines of an actual predator rather than the flatter teeth of the other characters. Pirate Cove reopened, along with Foxy's return to active status, though the area retained its out-of-order designation. The purple curtain with stars remained, and the sign indicating the attraction was not in service stayed in place, even though Foxy was once again operational behind those curtains. Whether this out-of-order status was intentional or simply a sign that was never removed from the previous closure remained unclear. The new location operated during the early to mid 1990 seconds, with the animatronics performing for children during the day and entering their mysterious active state at night. A new security guard, who would later be revealed to be Michael Afton using the alias Mike Schmidt, was hired to watch over the restaurant during the overnight hours. Mike's nights at this location would prove that the spirits inhabiting the animatronics, including Fritz within Foxy, had not been freed or put to rest. They remained trapped in their mechanical bodies, driven by confusion, rage, and the need for vengeance against their murderer. Foxy's behavior during these nights demonstrated a unique pattern that set him apart from the other animatronics. He resided within Pirate Cove, his movements tied to how frequently the security guard checked the camera system. This created a delicate balance that Mike had to maintain throughout each night. If Mike neglected to check the cameras regularly, Foxy would become more active more quickly. The animatronic would begin peeking out from behind the purple curtain, his face visible as he looked out from his cove. If Mike continued to ignore the cameras, Foxy would emerge further, standing outside the curtain with his head tilted to one side, clearly visible on the camera feed. Eventually, if left unchecked for too long, Foxy would leave Pirate Cove entirely. The sign that normally read, "Sorry," out of order, would sometimes display the phrase, "It's me," instead, a haunting message that suggested the presence of Fritz's consciousness within the machine. Once Foxy left Pirate Cove, he would sprint down the West Hall at incredible speed, running at approximately 27 miles per hour, faster than most humans could run. The sound of his metallic footsteps echoed through the building as he charged toward the security office. Unlike Bonnie and Chica, who would wait at the doors for the guard to notice them, Foxy would not pause or announce his presence. When Foxy reached the office door, Mike had only moments to respond. If the left door remained open when Foxy arrived, the Pirate Fox would burst into the office, his jump scare attack ending Mike's night immediately and fatally. If Mike managed to close the left door before Foxy's arrival, the animatronic would instead bang loudly on the door, creating a startling noise as his hook struck the metal. This attack, successful or not, would drain power from the restaurant's electrical system, with each subsequent attack draining progressively more power. After attacking, whether successfully or unsuccessfully, Foxy would return to Pirate Cove, resetting to some random position within his attraction. The cycle would then begin again, with Foxy becoming progressively more aggressive as the night went on, his activity increasing at 3 a.m. and again at 4 a.m. However, Mike learned that checking the cameras too frequently could also be dangerous. Looking at Pirate Cove too often would agitate Foxy, increasing his aggression level. Each time the camera focused on Pirate Cove, regardless of whether Foxy was visible or still behind the curtain, his aggravation would build. The more aggravated he became, the faster he would emerge from the cove and the more quickly he would attack. This created a careful balancing act. Mike needed to check the cameras regularly enough to prevent Foxy from leaving unchallenged, but not so frequently that he triggered the animatronic's increased aggression. Too little monitoring meant Foxy would sprint to the office quickly. Too much monitoring meant Foxy would become enraged and attack even faster. Throughout his nights at the restaurant, Foxy could sometimes be heard singing sea shanties to himself, his voice echoing through the building and a haunting reminder of his original purpose as an entertainer. These songs, once meant to delight children visiting Pirate Cove, now served as an eerie warning that the possessed animatronic was active and potentially approaching. The behavior patterns Foxy displayed suggested that Fritz's spirit, while driving the animatronic to attack the night guard, remained constrained by certain programming limitations. The animatronic could not simply manifest in the office instantly. He had to physically travel from Pirate Cove down the West Hall. He could be deterred by a closed door. His movements were influenced by whether the security cameras were being monitored. These limitations suggested that the possession was not complete control, but rather a merging of the spirit's intentions with the animatronic's existing systems and capabilities. Mike Schmidt survived multiple nights at this location, enduring repeated attacks from all the animatronics, including numerous encounters with Foxy's charging runs down the hallway. The job eventually ended, though the specific circumstances of Mike's departure and the restaurant's ultimate fate during this period remained somewhat unclear in the immediate aftermath. What is certain is that this version of Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, like its predecessors, would not continue operating indefinitely. The restaurant was plagued by the same issues that had haunted previous locations: the animatronics' disturbing behavior, the lingering rumors about missing children, and the general sense of unease that permeated the establishment. The location eventually closed, though it would be years before the final chapter of this story would unfold. The long wait, decades of silence. After the closure of the third Freddy Fazbear's Pizza location, the animatronics were once again placed in storage. This time, however, they would remain dormant for much longer than any previous period of inactivity. 30 years would pass, 3 full decades during which Foxy and his companions sat in darkness, the spirits within them trapped in a suspended state of existence. During these years, the Freddy Fazbear's Pizza franchise faded from prominence. The brand that had once been a popular family entertainment destination became instead a source of urban legends and dark rumors. People whispered about the missing children, about animatronics that moved on their own, about death and tragedy hidden behind cheerful mascots and birthday celebrations. The animatronics themselves, including Foxy, remained wherever Fazbear Entertainment had stored them, gathering dust, their systems inactive, their bodies slowly deteriorating from lack of maintenance. The spirit of Fritz remained bound within Foxy's mechanical frame throughout this entire period, unable to move on, unable to escape, simply waiting in the darkness. The world changed during those 30 years. Technology advanced. New forms of entertainment emerged. The children who had visited Freddy Fazbear's Pizza in the 1,980 seconds and early 1,990 seconds grew into adults. The tragedy of the missing children, while never completely forgotten, became more distant, more like an old story than a recent horror. But the spirits of the murdered children did not age. They did not mature or grow. They remained as they had been at the moment of their deaths: confused, frightened, angry children, trapped in mechanical bodies, waiting for resolution that seemed as though it might never come. Fazbear's Fright, horror attraction. 30 years after Freddy Fazbear's Pizza closed its doors for the final time, a new business venture emerged that sought to capitalize on the dark legends surrounding the franchise. Fazbear's Fright. The horror attraction opened with the express purpose of turning the tragic history of Freddy Fazbear's Pizza into a scary entertainment experience. The creators of Fazbear's Fright scoured old Freddy Fazbear's Pizza locations, seeking authentic pieces from the original restaurants to display in their horror attraction. They collected props, decorations, and any remnants they could find that would lend authenticity to their establishment. During their search, they discovered Foxy's head, along with other parts from the original animatronics. Foxy's severed head, with his tattered crimson fur, yellow eyes, and mechanical components, was put on display within Fazbear's Fright as a genuine relic from the original restaurant. The rest of Foxy's parts were placed in a prop box in the office, treated as interesting but lesser artifacts from the pizzeria's history. The head on display served as a reminder of what had once been the pirate fox who had entertained children, who had housed the spirit of a murdered boy named Fritz, was now reduced to a museum piece in a building dedicated to exploiting the tragedy of the past for profit. However, the spirit within Foxy was not completely dormant. While his head sat on display and his body parts lay scattered in a box, phantom images began to appear. Phantom Foxy, a burned and deteriorated hallucination based on withered Foxy's appearance, would manifest within Fazbear's Fright. Phantom Foxy appeared with severe burn damage covering his entire body, his fur charred and his form more broken than ever before. His left arm was completely gone, and white pupils showed in his eyes. He constantly seemed to lean to the right, his posture twisted and unnatural. The eye patch remained over his left eye, and the overall appearance suggested fire damage, as though Foxy had been burned at some point. These phantom manifestations were not physical entities, but rather hallucinations, though their effects were very real. When Phantom Foxy appeared, typically on night 3 of the attraction's operation, or later, he would manifest when the security guard moved to the left side of the office. Moving too quickly to the left would trigger his appearance. Once visible, if not properly dealt with, by moving right, pulling up the camera system, and putting it down again, Phantom Foxy would jump scare the guard. The jump scare would cause the ventilation system to malfunction, creating problems that would attract the attention of Springtrap, the main threat within Fazbear's Fright. In this way, even as scattered parts and phantom memories, Foxy remained dangerous, his presence causing complications for those working in the building. The appearance of Phantom Foxy, with its burned characteristics, seemed to foreshadow events that had not yet occurred, suggesting a connection between the spirit's existence across different time periods, or perhaps precognitive knowledge of what was to come. Liberation, the destruction of the animatronics. The true resolution of Foxy's story, and the story of all the possessed animatronics, occurred not at Fazbear's Fright, but earlier, shortly after the closure of the final Freddy Fazbear's Pizza location. This event was depicted in a series of mini-games that revealed the final fate of the original animatronics and the spirits bound within them. At some point after the restaurant's closure, the building stood abandoned and decaying. The animatronics remained inside, dormant but not destroyed. The location had clearly been closed for years, with visible decay, mess, and an overall atmosphere of neglect and rot permeating the structure. During this time of abandonment, a mysterious figure known as Shadow Freddy appeared within the building. This entity, a dark purple version of Freddy Fazbear, began moving through the abandoned pizzeria with apparent purpose. On the fourth night of these events, as depicted in the minigame sequence, the player experienced the story from Foxy's perspective. Foxy stood outside Pirate Cove, his familiar domain within the restaurant. Shadow Freddy appeared, and text appeared in the corner of the screen. "Follow me." Foxy, driven by Fritz's spirit within, followed Shadow Freddy through the abandoned restaurant. They moved through various rooms, Shadow Freddy always staying ahead, always leading Foxy deeper into the building. Eventually, they reached the top right section of the map, and Shadow Freddy continued upward toward another room. When Foxy attempted to follow Shadow Freddy into this final room, the animatronic was pushed backward. An error message appeared. The room Foxy was trying to enter was a safe room, hidden behind a false wall, inaccessible through normal means. As Foxy processed this blocked passage, a figure suddenly appeared. William Afton, the purple guy, the man who had murdered Fritz and the other children so many years ago. Afton ran at Foxy with violent intent, and in moments, he tore the animatronic apart, dismantling Foxy's mechanical body and leaving the pieces scattered on the floor. This same pattern had played out on previous nights with the other animatronics. Freddy had been led to the safe room by Shadow Freddy on night 1 and was dismantled by William. Bonnie followed on night 2 and met the same fate. That was the story of Foxy, one of the most misunderstood characters in the FNAF universe. If you enjoyed this Lore to Sleep 2, don't forget to like the video and subscribe for more calm FNAF stories, rain-filled nights, and peaceful lore breakdowns. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you in the next story. Good night.